The Washington Commanders dominated, destroyed, dismantled the Cleveland Browns 34-13 here in Northwest Stadium at Landover, Maryland. How it all went down, what it all means coming up right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Commanders fans, to today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of covering your Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. You can also find me writing this year for WUSA9.com, your local DC CBS affiliate. Of course, I'm here with you every Monday through Friday, here with you on the service of Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland, following the Washington Commanders' dominant win over the Cleveland Browns. I thank you for coming through today, every day, or a special thank you to you for coming through every single day, especially Victory Mondays, man. I mean, we're doing this on Sunday, but we're celebrating Victory Monday yet again. Locked On Commanders is your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to today's episode. We're going to go over our 3 stars from the latest Washington Commanders win, including our top star linebacker, Frankie Luvu. We're going to talk about how the Washington Commanders defense specifically muzzled the Cleveland Browns and helped lead this team to victory. And we're going to start it all off talking about how the Commanders connected 4. We talk about football being a child's game, and these guys are getting paid millions of dollars to play a kid's game. Well, the Washington Commanders are playing Connect 4 right now. If you want to get even more out of the Locked On Commanders podcast, become a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Commanders. You can get in on that today, and you can join me right after we get done with this live broadcast. We're going to do a live insider-only Zoom conference with myself as I get ready to leave here the stadium. You can walk out with me, and we can talk more about this game. So again, join subtext.com/Locked On Commanders to get that inside information, exclusive content, live text messages during games, practices, all that good stuff. LinkedIn Jobs is the sponsor for today's episode. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. The terms and conditions for the Washington Commanders to go 4-1 was to put up 34 points on the Cleveland Browns defense. And look, this is not a terrible, terrible defense here with the Cleveland Browns. They did suffer some injuries during this game, especially Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of my favorite linebackers during that year's pre-draft process. If you were here with me during that time, you'll remember that. Suffered an injury. Denzel Ward, the all-pro caliber, Pro Bowl caliber cornerback for Cleveland, ended up having to leave the game. So they did suffer some injuries during the course of the game. But honestly, once it got to that point, and it's unfortunate that these players would get hurt anyway, once it got to that point, this game was already pretty well in hand. But it didn't start that way, right? So it didn't start that way. And honestly, I don't think I'm lying when I say that there were some members of the Washington Commanders beat, some members of the Washington Commanders fan base. I'm not telling you that somebody said this to me, but I would not be surprised to think there were some members of the fan base, some members of the media who were sitting there saying, this might be it. This might be that moment. We've all been sitting there waiting for it, right? We've all been talking about and kind of thinking about, maybe not wanting to say it out loud, when is that bad game going to come? And look, I covered Tom Brady when he was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's had bad games. Patrick Mahomes has had bad games. Lamar Jackson has had bad games. There's going to be bad games. Championship teams still lose a game here and there. So those days are going to come. But I think that this group of us, right, this community, whether you're a fan, whether you're media, whatever it is, you're kind of predispositioned to kind of say, when is that other shoe going to fall? And the Washington Commanders, look, they had a lead coming out of the first quarter. It was only 7-0. There was the interception down by the goal line at the 1-yard line that Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah actually came up with. And I think there was a little bit of a kind of wonderment of, is this going to be kind of one of those games? But then you get to the second quarter, man, and you got Austin Seibert nailing a 27-yard field goal, still perfect since joining the Washington Commanders. B-Rob punches it in from 1 yard out, which helps the Washington Commanders, also helps my fantasy team, hopefully help yours if you listen to me. And Jayden Daniels hits De'Ami Brown for a 41-yard touchdown pass. Oh, by the way, Dustin Hopkins, former Washington kicker, nailed a 51-yard field goal, which is cool for him. Gave the Cleveland Browns, almost said Chicago Bears, gave the Cleveland Browns 3 points, but you go into halftime 24-3. So you come out of the first quarter 7-0 and maybe a little bit of nervous energy. You go into halftime 24-3, and from there, I mean, by the end of the third quarter, it's 34-6, and by the end of the game, the Cleveland Browns get a garbage time touchdown, and you end up with a 34-13 overall final stat line. Jayden Daniels, 11 carries for 82 yards. Austin Eckler, 6 carries for 67 yards. Jeremy McNichols, 7 carries, 44 yards. B-Rob 7 carries for 18 yards. So not a great rushing stat line for him, but he did have the 2 touchdowns. McNichols had a late touchdown as well. And then even Marcus Mariota getting some time here with the game well in hand, getting 2 carries for 2 yards. Jayden Daniels finishes 14 for 25, so not the 80-90% completion rate that he's been having. 238 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 85.1 passer rating, which is his lowest passer rating of his career, which I think is actually, no, sorry, check that, second lowest passer rating of his career. And I think that's honestly kind of my first takeaway from this game. And I told my insiders I was doing a live hit, or I was doing a hit with ABC7 before I got to do my live show. And one of the things that Scott Abraham of ABC7 asked me is, what's the big takeaway from this game? Well, that just so happens to be one of the first things we talk about here on this post-game episode every week. And my big takeaway is that even when this team is sloppy, they have the ability to pull it out. They have the ability to lean on each other, and they have the ability to pull out wins. And that honestly is the trademark of a good NFL team. Now, again, you're going up against a 1-3 Cleveland Browns team that has not looked good themselves, did not look good today. So you got to take a little bit of grain of salt, right? It's not like you went out there and played sloppy and beat the Kansas City Chiefs, played sloppy and beat the, Baltimore Ravens, which we'll be seeing next weekend. But you don't apologize for who your opponent is, right? At the end of the day, how did you execute? And you come out, Jayden Daniels, 50% on his first 10 passes, and he throws an interception. So that's how he starts the game. 5 for 10, has an interception in there, but he pulls it out. And look, even the back half of his passing attempts, he actually only completed 60% of his passes from 5 and 10 on. Well, he only completed 60% of his passes, but he also threw the touchdown, did all those things. And again, you see this team pull it out. One of the ways they pulled it out was that defense locking down this Cleveland Browns offense, not allowing them to get that edge, take advantage of the offense kind of starting a little bit slow. That is that complementary football that you're looking for. The Washington Commanders only scored once in their first 4 drives. They scored on 5 of their last 6 drives with Jayden Daniels in at quarterback. I stopped counting once Marcus Mariota came in. No offense to Marcus or anything like that, but just kind of that's kind of like where the real quote unquote stat tracking goes away. Looking at the defense, man, my biggest takeaway from the defense, my biggest takeaway from the whole team is you're seeing a team that knows how to stick through the mud, stick through the hiccups, right? And we've seen it. We've seen Washington teams that once things start going bad, they just stay bad or they get even worse. This team, it started not great, started bad in some elements, and they got better. And they pulled it out, and they pulled together. Tackling on the Washington Commanders defense. Like, you love seeing the pass rush get in 7 sacks today. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a minute. But I think tackling, I think when you look at what has gotten so much better with the Washington Commanders defense, that they've been able to stack these 2 really great performances, one against the Arizona Cardinals and then this weekend against Cleveland Browns. I think it's that tackling, right? That tackling has gotten so much better for them on that side of the ball. And I think that goes back to even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, that one loss they've got this season. Guys were in position for a lot of those. Now, the secondary was a bigger problem in that game, I think. But as far as like the front 7 is concerned, guys were in position. They just weren't wrapping and making that final tackle. And I think we've really started to see guys from just going to being there, right, and then getting run over or slipping an arm tackle or whatever, to not only being there, but also being there and making the play. And I think that's kind of the biggest, it's not like the sexiest step forward in the evolution of the defense, but I think that's been the biggest part of this for the Washington Commanders, and it's why we see this defense stacking 2 really good games back to back. So it's kind of a twofer, biggest or first takeaway for this win here this weekend, but I think that it kind of deserves both of those. The teams being able to win sloppy and this defense getting a lot better through the technical skill of their tackling abilities. Coming up next, every week we name 3 things this team must do in order to get the win. We'll take a look at how they did in those 3 things. We know they got the win, but was it because they accomplished all 3 of those things? That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're doing that today thanks to our friends over at LinkedIn. And when you're hiring for your small business, you need to find the qualified professionals that are right for the role. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn helps you find professionals that you wouldn't find anywhere else, people who may not even be looking for a job actively, but are open to opportunities in the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit websites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. In fact, on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting their job. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats that you may not have the time or the resources to hire professionally and appropriately. So they even do things to make the job easier for you. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and it's October, which means it's Halloween season, and Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't necessarily involve zombies and ghosts and other make-believe things? Because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fear in the first place and holding ourselves back. When I retired from my career in the United States Army during COVID, my fear was that I wasn't going to be able to find the appropriate job that allowed me to maintain my family's standard of living. They had come used to a certain standard of living during my military career. I was worried about being able to provide that comfort and that shelter for them. Speaking to people who are outside my perspective, outside my situation, can give me an honest view from a top-down perspective, really helped me keep things in perspective, using that word there again. They helped me prioritize my needs and establish goals that were attainable and realistic. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Continuing now with today's episode of Locked On Commanders live here at Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland, following the Washington Commanders 34-13 win. And the game was actually not as close as the score would have you believe. Three things that the Washington Commanders had to do. We laid these out with Jeff Lloyd on our Thursday episode, our crossover Thursday episode that we do every single week. I'm really looking forward to having Kevin Ostreicher. While he'll have me, he'll be hosting since he's the home team. But Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens and I will be doing that again this coming Thursday, so make sure you check that out as well. But we always talk about three things that each team has to do in order to win this game. And I'm pretty confident. I don't remember exactly what Jeff Lloyd of Locked On Browns said that the Cleveland Browns had to do in order to win this game, but I'm pretty sure they didn't do at least two of the three, if not all three. Well, the Washington Commanders also didn't do all three things that we told them to do, but they did do 2/3 of them. In this case, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I hear there's a pretty popular singer out there who once said that, and I think he was pretty accurate with that assessment. So the Washington Commanders achieved 2 of the 3 things that we said they have to do. The first thing that we said was continue protecting the football. And from an overall standpoint, they actually kind of did, right? You do have the interception, but there were a couple of other opportunities. Ezekiel Elliott, Austin Eckler had a really big run, electrified this crowd, electrified everybody kind of watching this game, but he fumbles at the end of it. And again, not really sure how that happens. Austin Eckler certainly knows how to protect the ball, but sometimes, guys just get victimized. Now, what's good about that play is that wide receiver Olamide Zaccheaus wasn't just running behind his teammates saying, "Oh, we got to get down here, get on the ball because my guy's about to change field position on all of us." He's chasing that play down, ready for anything to happen. So when Austin Eckler has that ball knocked free, Olamide Zaccheaus is there to fall on that ball, secures it, continues the drive, keeps that drive alive for his team, which turns out to be a very crucial play in this game because at the time, it's a 7-3 game. If you give that ball back to Cleveland, we talked about this in the lead up to the game, teams like the Cleveland Browns, yeah, they're down bad and they're not performing very well, but if you do things that hurt yourself and give them opportunities to build up some confidence and get some of those things rolling the wrong way, that's when those types of teams can come up and really kind of grab you by surprise. And so that was a big opportunity for the Cleveland Browns that they weren't able to capitalize on because Olamide Zaccheaus was doing the right thing. Dan Quinn was asked about that specific play after the game, asked about, is that something that just kind of speaks to Olamide and his fight as a teammate and his energy on the field? Or is that something that you guys prepare for and practice for and say, hey, look, don't just stand there and watch big plays. Go down there just in case something happens that you need to get involved with and be a part of. And Dan Quinn said it's kind of both, right? They talk about it. He said they've shown clips of really big plays that go bad because something happens at the end and teammates aren't necessarily going down and pursuing the play behind the action. But also that Olamide is just one of those dudes. He's a guy who's going to go down there and he's going to fight all the way through the play. He's not going to take that play off and just kind of stand there and watch the home run, so to speak, to cross sports there. So really great play by Olamide. There's another play where Zach Ertz kind of seemed to bring a pass in. A lot of us kind of wonder, like it was kind of bang, but maybe it was not enough bang that the officials might continue and call it a fumble. The Cleveland Browns had recovered that one. Would have been the second turnover in the red zone of the game if it was upheld. But very quick review. I really like that the NFL is starting to do those really quick, electronic or visual assistance plays where they kind of call down to the refs and say, hey, you got that one wrong. Let's go ahead and fix it. I really like they've been doing that. So they fixed that one pretty quickly, but still kind of one of those hold your breath moments down there in the red zone when Zach Ertz dropped that pass. Look, not a great game for Zach Ertz. Again, talking about winning sloppy. It's actually, so now that you're coming out of it, right? 34-13, and you go, Zach Ertz really did not do well for the most part in this game. Had some good catches, still had some moments, certainly. But when you look at it, you say, man, like our quarterback didn't complete as many passes as he had passed, threw an interception in the red killers, and then Zach didn't have the greatest. Terry, I don't know if they would officially call the drop, but he certainly will tell you, like, I got to bring that ball in there in the end zone. All those things happen, yet you come out with the dominant win. So continue to protect the ball. Didn't do it from the aspect of just holistically not having any turnovers, but did it enough to go ahead and win the game. Next one was get takeaways, play holistic defense, and let the Cleveland Browns offense hurt itself. This Cleveland Browns offense is one that knows how to defeat itself, right? That's just being honest with them. I'm not trying to be rude. And honestly, there were some members of the Browns beat that were in the press box and things started happening. Certain things would happen. They kind of were like, oh, of course. Oh, here we go again. And look, we've been there, right? But allowed the Cleveland Browns defense or offense to hurt itself. And I want to give you the exact number here because I know at one point in time, the Cleveland Browns were 0 for 11 on third down attempts. They finished 1 for 13. I believe they went 0 for 12 first, and then they got a garbage time third down conversion. That's 8% third down conversion rate for the Cleveland Browns. And I think I counted 3, maybe 4 sacks. It was 3 or 4 sacks. I want to say 3, but it might have been 4. 3 or 4 of these 7 Washington Commanders sacks today came on third down. And yes, it's third and long. It's passing down scenarios so the defense can pin their ears back. But here's the thing. When you're in a must-pass situation on third down, the offense and the offensive line also knows that you're coming. So they do things and they try to do things, and quarterbacks are supposed to do things. So, yeah, so everybody kind of is on the same page there, but you're still able to go out there and get those sacks on critical third downs, get the Cleveland Browns offense off the field. 6 3-and-outs in this game. Are you kidding me? 6 3-and-outs that the defense forced in this game. At one point, the Cleveland Browns had more 3-and-outs on offense than they had points. And that's a pretty amazing stat, especially when you're like 3 quarters into the game. So huge there. I mean, one of the 3-and-outs came on that Jayden Daniels interception, right? Interception comes on the 1-yard line. Cleveland Browns, it's a rough situation anyway, but you're able to get that 3-and-out. The Washington Commanders offense gets the ball right back in good position, and you're able to kind of erase that interception a little bit. So great complimentary football there. And then they only had 3 explosive plays allowed on defense before garbage time, before the backups kind of started to come in. And 3 explosive plays is nothing for an offense. Now, go back to the last few weeks, and the Washington Commanders offense themselves had 4 explosive offensive plays in one game, only had 5 in another one, yet we're still able to put up 30-plus points. So this kind of shows you the Cleveland Browns only have 3 explosive plays on offense, only put up 13 points. That's much more the norm. Whereas the Washington Commanders have been producing points without a lot of explosive plays, that has definitely been the outlier. So great job by the defense. They're definitely getting takeaways. Again, that fumble, I asked Bobby Wagner, asked Frankie Luvu both how it felt. Those guys go way back. I talked to both of them there, so I'll be sharing that with you guys here on this show, but also on Sports Illustrated here throughout the week. But as both those guys, they've known each other for a long time, loving playing with each other. And that play specifically just kind of epitomizes their relationship, right? Bobby gets the forced fumble. Frankie Luvu gets the fumble recovery. Both of them talk about how Frankie should have scored on that play. Bobby Wagner actually says he's going to give him a little bit of trash for not scoring on that play. Frankie, when I asked him about it in his presser, was kind of sad. I said, man, I should have scored on that play. So a really great moment for those two guys. And then finally control the field on special teams. Special teams is such a massive part of this game. We've seen it here in Washington with this franchise struggling in special teams, whether it's the inability to get consistent returns, whether it's the inability to get the kicking game solved. And not only are you having a kicker that's doing great for you, but you also got a return game. Olamide Zaccheaus, punt returns of 15 and 18 yards today. And then you continue to have solid tackling on that side of that ball or on that third phase of the game. So I came into it, I said, you know what? We're coming off of the best team win for this Washington Commanders team out of Arizona. So I wanted to have the must-dos be all 3 phases. I want to hit all 3 phases. And I would say you could say the offensive must-do, protect the ball. Maybe we can get away with saying they didn't achieve that one, but they definitely achieved the defensive must-do. They definitely achieved the special teams must-do. And because of it, they come out with that 34-13 win. What was the key play? There's a lot of plays to pick from. What was the key play of this game, and who are the 3 stars of this game? I'll tell you right now, Frankie Luvu, star number 1, but he's not the only one that came out of this game. That coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're doing that thanks to our friends over at FanDuel. NFL fans, if you're watching this, you are an NFL fan. You can start this season big with a big return from FanDuel or on FanDuel. America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view play-by-plays, so much more on the exact same page, that #1 sports book in America, FanDuel, where you place your bets. And actually, if you listen to me coming into this game, if you are the wagering type, hopefully you're doing it smartly and responsibly, then you would have taken the Washington Commanders by 3 points. You would have taken the over on the total points scored projection. And if you waited until after the first quarter, when it was just 7-0 and the Commanders offense wasn't doing too hot, you might have actually gotten better odds at that over-under. And if you still listened to me, you still had faith, not that you should listen to me all the time, I'm not telling you that, but if you still had that faith, you might have come out a lot better off than if you just did it before the game started. Either way, if you're new to FanDuel, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your $5 bet. So take full advantage of this latest opportunity. Go to FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Continuing now with today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Excuse me. Got a bug climbing on my glasses. We're going to talk about the play of the day. We're going to talk about our other takeaways if we have them. We do have a few. And we're going to talk about our 3 stars of the game. Play of the day, we already talked about it a little bit. Austin Ekeler off right tackle to the Cleveland 23 for a gain of 57 yards. But at the end of that 57-yard run, Austin Ekeler fumbles. Olamide Zaccheaus recovers following great pursuit of the ball. Again, at the time, the game is 7-3. Commanders are leading, but you need that other score. You need to really kind of take advantage of those opportunities to show the Cleveland Browns, like, hey, not only do you need to figure your stuff out, but you need to do it quickly because we're figuring our stuff out. We're going to start putting points up in bunches. Olamide Zaccheaus keeping that drive alive, keeping them able to put up some points. They end up putting up points, and they end up running away with this football game. So that play, for me, was the play of the day. Certainly some other options. Definitely had some conversation with other media members that were here in the press box. I got some feedback from some people. Not everybody agreed with the pick that we settled on, but ultimately that was the pick that we settled on. Some other takeaways. This Washington Commanders running game is legit. You watch this game, and I mean, Jeremy McNichols earned more playing time, right, as the third running back in the first few weeks when Austin Ekeler and Brian Robinson were both healthy. Really wasn't getting a lot of burn, but that he comes in when Austin Ekeler is out in Arizona really shows this team, like, hey, I'm a dude that can touch the ball. I'm a dude that can help you out on a week-to-week basis. So you see him not only get touches there, but he still gets touches here. Even with B-Rob, even with Austin Ekeler in the game and active, Jeremy McNichols comes in, ends up getting a touchdown on the game. It made a really big special teams tackle that Dan Quinn really gave a lot of praise for as well. So Jeremy McNichols, Austin Ekeler, Brian Robinson really proving their worth and their value to this team. Jayden Daniels also very legit. I mean, you see a rookie quarterback having in a lot of ways his worst statistical game of his NFL career, and the dude never flinched. There was literally a scramble where it wasn't like a touchdown scramble or anything like that, but it was an important scramble. It was a 9-yard gain, like needed 5 yards to go or something like that. He had about a 9-yard gain. I was watching on the big screen, and he's smiling, right? He's just having fun. And this is a dude who theoretically, arguably, right, there might be some outlets out there. It's not going to be this one. There might be some outlets out there like, oh, okay, well, is Jayden Daniels coming back to earth, and maybe he's not going to be the greatest rookie quarterback ever, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the dude's still having fun, still leading his team to win. For anybody who might be wondering, Jayden Daniels pulled in the fourth quarter, not banged up, not injured at all. It was garbage time. You know, no, don't risk Jayden Daniels. Plus, Dan Quinn said they wanted to give Marcus Mariota some reps since he's missed some time. Really hope those sprinklers don't get me. Defense, obviously, is looking legit, but do want to see more. Okay, Arizona Cardinals offense better than the Cleveland Browns offense, but neither offense is really like the powerhouse offense that you really kind of hang your hat on if you're a defense. Good performances. Again, you don't pick who you play. Like, your schedule is what your schedule is. So nobody's asking them to give back these performances or apologize by any means, but you would like to see them do it against some better offenses. And speaking of which, Baltimore Ravens coming up next week, so they're going to be able to kind of try to stack one of those performances against them. 3 stars of the game. Star number 3, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Dyami Brown and Luke McCaffrey. I'm going with both of them. All right, forgive me. But Dyami Brown ends up with 2 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown, that 41-yard touchdown. Luke McCaffrey comes through with 3 catches, 19 yards. Some really important catches by Luke McCaffrey. Both of those guys really coming through here to kind of dual wide receiver number 2 this thing. This is something that I talked to Dan Quinn about earlier in the season. It's something that we talked to Jayden Daniels about, having faith in his weapon. Something that we talked to Terry McLaurin about today in the locker room, about having guys as a collective who can kind of be that number 2, and they're pulling through. So if you total up their stat line, right, what is it? It's 5 catches for That's 67, 76 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that's about as good as a number 2 as you're going to get in the National Football League. And then you got Lamine Zaccheaus this game playing the one-catch guy. Last week, it was Luke McCaffrey being the one-catch guy. Next week, it might be Luke again. Might be Diami. Who knows? Hopefully, Noah Brown is back. But the good news is you got guys out there that can be that collective number 2. You know what? Venom's got a new movie coming out, so we'll do that. It's the we are the number 2 receiver, if you know what I'm talking about with Venom. So start number 3, Diami Brown and Luke McCaffrey. Start number 2, Austin Eckler, man. Coming back from that concussion, coming back as a leader of this team, made some really big plays. Again, you have that fumble, which you don't want to see, but doesn't end up hurting the team. But Austin Eckler absolutely coming out here and playing a pivotal role in this game, in his first game back from concussion. Then star number 1, it's got to be Frankie Luvu, man. 2.5 sacks, a fumble recovery, and beyond the stat box, dude was just everywhere. Every time there's a play being made, if number 4 is not making the actual play, number 4 is certainly around the actual play. I asked him to kind of shine some light because I know Frankie's the kind of guy who likes to do it anyway. But I asked him to kind of shine some light on some other guys around him. Said, you know, those guys like John Allen, Deron Payne, all the guys on the defensive front are really filling their gaps while they're taking on double teams so the guys like he and Bobby Wagner can be free to make some of those big splash plays that everybody finds super sexy. But he acknowledges it's a team effort, right? Led the team in tackles today with 7 of them. Again, 2.5 sacks, 15.5 yards lost on those sacks from Frankie Luvu. So he is star number 1. So Diami and Luke McCaffrey, Diami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, star number 3 combined. Star number 2, Austin Eckler, star number 1, linebacker Frankie Luvu. And at the end of the day, your Washington Commanders are 4-1, 4-game winning streak. We're headed to Baltimore next week. And bottom line, guys, worst case scenario, after 6 weeks of play, this team is going to be 4-2, and they're going to be, that's worst case, remember, and they're going to be 3/4 of the way through the AFC North, one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. That's a pretty good way to be standing when you look at it all. So coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk to Dan Quinn at about 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Zoom. I'll have another episode diving even deeper into all of the things that happened in this game. So we'll come back and we'll do that for our Tuesday episode. This is our Monday episode. So if you have any questions or comments in the meantime, just throw them at me via text message. Become a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to get involved in that today. Speaking of which, insiders, you are about to get an invitation to a Zoom conference, insider-only Zoom conference, so we can chat a little bit more after this episode is done broadcasting. Thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day. Every day for your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. It's new, and it's twice per day. You got an episode in the morning, episode at night. Get all your NFL information and takes from those episodes, Locked On NFL. Again, thank you for coming through every day. I appreciate you coming through every single day. And until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I will see you right back here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.